Formula One has a lot of passionate fan bases, but sometimes that spills over into dangerous behavior. At the Austrian Grand Prix, things got out of hand, with abusive fans ruining the event for many spectators. That's why F1 put stricter security in place for the French Grand Prix. So what did they do exactly? And how is the FIA responding? Plus, we'll talk about Michael Masi's first interview since the controversy in Abu Dhabi. So stay tuned for all of that, coming right up. First up, Austria. Formula One has a problem with women. All of the drivers and most of the senior positions are filled by men. This is part of why there are almost twice as many avid male fans than there are female fans. The good thing is that this gap is closing. But at the Austrian Grand Prix, women were reminded why there's been some hesitation to get on board with the sport. Over the weekend, there were a number of reports of unsolicited physical advances, photos were taken without consent, and verbal harassment. And that wasn't all. There were also instances of racism and homophobia at the Red Bull ring. There were suggestions by Max Verstappen that a clampdown on alcohol consumption might be able to address this issue. But Toto Wolff said that the issues went beyond that. He said, if you abuse, in whatever way, sexist, racist, homophobic, you're just simply brainless, and no alcohol can excuse that. And whoever reads my sentences, stay away. If you're part of that group, fuck off. That was a strong message from the Mercedes man, who has partnered with his driver Lewis Hamilton in the past to try to address the lack of diversity in the sport. As for Formula One management, they responded by calling the behavior unacceptable and putting in place measures for the French Grand Prix. There was an increased security presence as well as SOS assistance phone lines to help respond to out-of-control fans. In the build-up to the race, Lewis Hamilton said, "We just need to continue to take a stand, and hopefully, slowly, people will navigate to that route." Formula One has tried to respond quickly to the reports. In their effort to include a larger and more diverse audience, they have to maintain a reputation as a safe place to enjoy motorsport. That's why they launched the Drive It Out campaign, which includes a video featuring all the drivers and key management figures. The campaign also takes aim at online behavior within the F1 community. It encourages fans to report offenders and report incidents of abuse. In the campaign, the message is, "We cannot let those who think they can abuse others get away with it. We have a duty to call this out and say no more. We are acting as a community to block those who abuse others online." Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali has backed up this message. In an interview with Sky Sports F1, he said, "The beauty of our sport is that we can control it because back in the grandstands, once again, a lot of kids, a lot of families. It is good to see different caps all mixed up." Domenicali has promised to put measures in place that make it easy for fans to report incidents when they feel unsafe, threatened, or like someone is acting inappropriately. With social media, this has become much easier. Some of the abuse at the Austrian Grand Prix was reported to Mercedes online. But with an ever-growing fan base, Formula One will have to be careful not to recreate a culture of football hooligans. Coming up, what did Michael Masi say about the online abuse he received last year? And how are things going from bad to worse for Nelson Piquet? So don't go anywhere. Next, public enemy number one. Someone who knows a thing or two about online abuse is ousted race director Michael Masi. In a recent interview with the Australian Daily Telegraph, he broke his silence about last year's events and opened up about what he experienced online. Last season's title battle between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen had plenty of flashpoints throughout the year, but none was more controversial than the season final in Abu Dhabi. If you didn't watch it, Verstappen overtook Hamilton in the final lap of the race in Abu Dhabi to become the first Dutch champion in F1 history. But even before he crossed the line, people were asking questions about the interventions that Michael Masi made in the final laps of the race. He made a number of unprecedented orders, and after an FIA investigation, it was determined that there were significant human errors made that determined the outcome of the race. But in the aftermath of Abu Dhabi, fans of Hamilton, Mercedes, and motorsports enthusiasts who couldn't believe what they had just witnessed all flooded F1, FIA, and social media with outrage. Now, more than 6 months later, Michael Masi has revealed the full extent of the abuse he received. He said, "I was confronted with hundreds of messages, racist, abusive, vile. They called me every name under the sun, and there were death threats, people saying that they were going to come after me and my family." Masi told the FIA about the abuse, but other than that, kept it pretty private. Last month, it was confirmed that Masi had officially left the FIA after losing his job in Formula One earlier in the year. Now, knight in shining armor. The abuse and harassment that some fans experienced at the Austrian Grand Prix was dreadful. However, one silver lining was getting to meet some of the drivers. After the race, McLaren driver Daniel Ricciardo was asked about the incidents, and he said that he hopes F1 comes down hard on people ruining the atmosphere. He also mentioned that he and his team were planning on meeting with some of the fans to help cheer them up. He said, "I heard about it. There are a few victims and fans who are in the paddock, so we're going to go and say good day say to a few of them and give them a bit of love. And it wasn't even the first time that weekend that the Australian had been outspoken about fan behavior. When both Mercedes drivers crashed out of qualifying at the Red Bull Ring, Ricciardo took aim at a certain fan base. Lewis Hamilton lost control of his car during Friday's qualifying session going into Turn 7 and ended up in the barrier. The reaction of the crowd was a little concerning. Applause and cheers were heard from the stands at Red Bull's home track. Ricciardo had this to say: "Of course, you're going to have the drivers you like and the drivers that you don't necessarily root for, but I think in an accident you wish not to see it." He also wanted to remind fans that all of the drivers are just human beings too, and they all feel the same kind of emotions. Formula One fans need to have more respect for just how dangerous the sport is. You might not want someone to win, but nobody wants to see any injuries. Next up is a reminder that abuse in Formula One doesn't always come from fans. Three-time world champion Nelson Piquet is facing a court hearing over the racial slurs he used in reference to Lewis Hamilton. In an interview recorded last November, it was obvious that Nelson Piquet is a Max Verstappen supporter. Earlier in the year, he said that Verstappen would smash Hamilton in the same car. Plus, Verstappen is dating his daughter, Kelly Piquet. So nobody expected any compliments heading in Hamilton's direction, but some of the language he used has caused a huge controversy. At several times during the interview, he referred to Hamilton with the Brazilian equivalent of the N-word. The FIA responded by releasing a statement saying, "The FIA strongly condemns any racist or discriminatory language and behavior. We express our solidarity with Lewis Hamilton and fully support his commitment to equality, diversity, and inclusion in motorsport." Then they followed up by banning Piquet from attending Formula One events. But now things could get even worse for the Brazilian. A judge in Sao Paulo has given the green light for an investigation into Piquet's language. That followed on from a human rights group bringing charges against Piquet, which could result in almost $2 million in damages. Piquet will have his chance to plead his case against the charges. He released an apology shortly after the comment surfaced, but also defended the term he used. He said, "The term used is one that has widely and historically been used colloquially in Brazilian Portuguese as a synonym for guy or person, and was never intended to offend." Whatever the intent of the comments, Formula One has been forced to take a stand, and it could be some time before Piquet is seen at another F1 event. Do you think that Nelson Piquet should be allowed back into the paddock? And do you think racism is a big problem in Formula One? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.